2026 is going to be a tough year for the world economy. And in this video, I'm going to be taking you through my top 10 key, specific, and unique financial astrology predictions for the global markets in the year ahead. My name's Rowan. I'm a financial astrologer who uses the tropical Western zodiac alongside traditional Vedic techniques to analyze stocks, cryptos, and macroeconomic events to give you an advantage in your finances by showing you a unique perspective which is one step ahead of the markets. Here, I'm going to summarize my research so far and give you 10 key and unique predictions for the macroeconomic financial situation in the world using financial astrology techniques. So let's just get straight into it because 2026 is going to be a very interesting year. Prediction number 1, the Great Crypto Reset. I believe that 2026 is going to be a very tough year on cryptos, on Bitcoin, on Ethereum, on altcoins, and for tech stocks in general. We're entering a fire horse year. And Bitcoin, being born in early 2009, is an earth rat. In Chinese astrology, these two signs create a massive clash towards each other. They do not get on well energetically. And we can verify this because if you take a look at the last horse year for Bitcoin, that was 2014, which was a year where we saw one of Bitcoin's biggest bear markets. We're entering another horse year in 2026, starting around February. And I believe that this is one reason amongst many why we're going to see Bitcoin get crushed. Second reason here is because if we use the traditional Western chart for the 3rd of January 2009 at 6:15 in London, UK, which is a very responsive astrological chart for Bitcoin, around March, we do see that transiting Saturn, which is debilitated in Aries, will be making an exact conjunction over Bitcoin's natal moon. Now, Saturn represents negativity, restriction, depression, and the moon represents the emotional market sentiment surrounding this asset. So I believe that from around March, there's going to be some really visible, depressing sentiment around Bitcoin, which will start a bear market year in 2026 for Bitcoin. And thirdly, if we use the Hellenistic technique of profection years, we assign one house per year. Bitcoin is entering what we call a 6th house perfection year. Themes of the 6th house include struggle, obstacles, health issues, daily grind. It's a very obstacle-ridden house. It's to do with health issues, with debt, with grinding burdens. So it's not a very bullish year. And if we actually go back 12 years to the last 6th house perfection year, it was also 2014, another horse year, again, where we saw this massive drawdown in terms of Bitcoin. I've also checked the Varshafala chart. This is the Vedic solar return chart, which is presenting a very bearish, not very positive yearly result for Bitcoin. So I think 2026 is going to be a really bad year for Bitcoin. I think we could see some excellent buying opportunities if you're still interested by around Q3 2026. And we'll get into reasons why in my later predictions. Prediction number 2, the February Federal Reserve crisis. I believe astrologically that the Federal Reserve is going to come into a major crisis around February 17th. Give it a week before, give it a week after. Mid-February 2026, we're going to see a major crisis with the Federal Reserve. And if there's a crisis affecting the Federal Reserve, it's affecting the US economy. And if it's affecting the US economy, it's likely affecting many other economies around the world. The reason for this is we have this Saturn-Neptune conjunction going over the midheaven angle of the Federal Reserve when you use a specific chart for the Federal Reserve. Now, the midheaven point is the angle which is related to public visibility, to career, and to reputation and status. And when Saturn and Neptune conjoin at 0 degrees Aries, right on this midheaven angle, this is going to bring a kind of major crisis of confusion. It'll be stressful in the Federal Reserve around this time. We will likely see media stories related to the Fed having a crisis of sort around mid-February, late February. Now, Saturn is a planet of restriction, deflation, contraction, and Neptune is often associated with inflation. So is there some sort of crisis in which the two can't go away? You know, there's a inflationary crisis in which the solution is massive deflation, or is there a deflationary crisis in which the solution is massive inflation? I think there's going to be a real stress around the Federal Reserve at this time, especially relating to the value of the dollar, the inflation, the deflation mechanics. So February, I think we're going to see a crisis at the Federal Reserve, which will have major knock-on effects for the world markets. Prediction number 3, commodities will be the winning asset of 2026. So 2026, we're obviously anticipating to be very bearish for Bitcoin, crypto, altcoins, all of those kind of techie, fancy assets. And what we're already seeing is that we're having a major resurgence in the value of commodities. That's things like gold, silver, platinum, copper, uranium. I think the commodities are the winning asset class of 2026. I think they'll far outperform any tech stocks and crypto on the whole. And I believe that silver is in fact the winner, one of the main winners of 2026. If you want to go deeper into the reasons why I'm predicting that silver will be a key asset in 2026, you can check out this in-depth interview I did with Sulabh Jain of Chariot Palmistry. He's a fantastic financial astrologer. We go into over half an hour's worth of deep discussion, both from a Vedic sidereal perspective and tropical Western perspective, and really fire off some key ideas in a timeline for silver through 2026. So I'd recommend you check that one out. What I will say here is that I can see silver having a major resurgence, not only as a traditional safe haven asset, but actually rediscovering its value in industry in this new technological revolution that we're going through. We're going to see silver in new batteries, in AI data centers, in a lot of the AI tech. Silver will be rediscovering its value both as a safe haven asset and as its practical use in industry. Prediction number 4, we're going to have a regional American banking crisis around July 2026, specifically the second half of July 2026. This is based on a synodic cycle of Pluto and Jupiter. We saw a conjunction in 2020 around April, around the COVID crash. The waxing square of this aspect brought us the issues with First Republic Bank, with Republic First Bank, with Credit Suisse. You remember we saw all of those banking issues, which felt like they were kind of swept under the rug a little bit. Now I think there's a major karmic consequence coming in July 2026. I think American regional banks in particular are at risk around late July 2026. I'm quite confident we'll see some stories about bank failures, especially American regional banks, but perhaps UK and European banks as well, around July 2026. This is when the opposition aspect goes, which is just another chapter in the story of the synodic cycle between Pluto and Jupiter. So if you're into your banking stocks or if you're invested in banks, I would be very, very cautious around July 2026. Prediction number 5, this is quite an interesting one, which I don't hear from anyone else online. Not so stable coins. These are these tokens which are backed by companies with basically a promissory note that we have the dollar value backing all of the tokens that we digitally make. Popular ones are USDC and USDT. I actually took a look at the astrology of Tether USDT, and I think that this could actually have a volatile year. I actually think we could see some risks of stablecoin depegging. Now, what is that? That is when a stablecoin which claims it is worth $1 could actually depeg to around 95 cents, 93 cents, because I think there will be some auditing into these companies. Too many people in the crypto space blindly believe that Tether, USDT, and USDC, that these companies are telling the truth, basically. So I think there will be more auditing of companies. And I think because of this massive bear market in crypto, all this emotional fear will sweep the market and it will cause doubts, especially in terms of the regulators and in terms of the auditors, even in terms of just consumers who are using these stable coins. People will be in major fear in this crypto bear market. And they'll be saying, well, is my stable coin safe? If I take my crypto money and I park it in a stable coin, how do I know that's safe? Well, the truth is you don't. And I think there's a potential for a depegging here with some stablecoin companies. The practical advice for this is if you're taking money out of your crypto at any time, don't park it in stable coins because, again, you're presuming that value is fixed when it could actually slide and there could actually be some issues. So it might not be a super dangerous event if it does come true. I do think we'll have news stories related to stablecoin companies not being as solid and safe as we once thought. Prediction number 6, the first of the AI bubbles will occur. Now, obviously, the major narrative right now is that there is one AI bubble, which is going to burst at some point. Now, 2026 is a very bad year economically. And again, with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, this is one of 2026's peak timing windows for where I could see that happening. Saturn and Neptune, Saturn is restriction, negativity, and cold, hard truth. Neptune is over optimism, it's inflation, it's bubbles. So when Saturn and Neptune conjoin, it gives me this archetypal imagery of Saturn bursting bubbles. Saturn and Neptune is a bubble bursting message. It's a bubble bursting archetype. And I've particularly noticed that this is impacting the chart of NVIDIA because Aries, where the Saturn and Neptune conjunction is taking place, is right on the second house of money and everyday resources for NVIDIA. So I think the most likely window for this is February, not only because we have the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, but because we have a solar eclipse in the sign of Aquarius, which rules all of these tech stocks. I think the major window in 2026 for a tech stock and AI bubble burst is around late February into March. I think there could be multiple AI bubbles. It is likely the case because the narrative presumes that there is just one AI bubble. But I think for 2026, the most likely window for this to take place would be mid to late February. So again, if you're in tech stocks, AI stocks, crypto, that kind of stuff is really at risk in my humble opinion. Prediction 7, Ethereum will start to enter a long-term decline. Now, the reason for this is when you look at the Ethereum chart, it starts to enter a 12th house perfection year in late July 2026. This is when it goes from an 11th house year, which is more auspicious, to a 12th house year. Now, this is a less auspicious, one of the least auspicious perfection years that you can get. 12th house years are loss, dispersion, reduction of energy, death, basically the antithesis of growth. Now, I'm not just basing this on the perfection year because I've noticed that Ethereum, it's getting more costly. The gas fees associated with using the Ethereum network are getting more costly. Even when there's updates coming out, when there's the proof of stake, when the merge happened, I think Ethereum is at risk from competition from faster, cheaper, more efficient blockchains such as Solana, Avalanche, and especially Hedera Hashgraph. Now, you'll see a macro narrative emerging that Ethereum is starting to be used in the mainstream financial sectors, and we could indeed see some price rises for Ethereum. But I think because it's such a harsh year on crypto, in 2026, I think Ethereum will start to enter decline because the market will just simply reward faster, more efficient technologies like Avalanche, like Solana, and especially Hedera Hashgraph, which I'm a big fan of. So I don't think Ethereum is sticking around in the long term. And I think the second half of 2026 is when we start to see this visible decline for Ethereum, because this competition space is always evolving, the technology is always evolving, and faster, cheaper, more efficient technologies already exist to replace Ethereum. Prediction 8, this is one that you might not have heard from any other people in this sort of prediction space. August 2026 presents a real risk of a health scare, a potential small virus, nothing on the scale of COVID, but I think there will be a health scare, regional outbreaks of something like a swine flu or a bird flu, similar to 2008, 2009. I think this isn't a massive pandemic, but I think pandemic PTSD kicks in for the markets, and we could see some real like market jitters and panics. I think we're going to see news break around early August 2026 that there's a swine flu, a bird flu, some sort of virus. Maybe it's spreading regionally in China or spreading regionally in Europe. I think this isn't a pandemic that we have to worry about too much, but I think markets are going to severely overreact until they get more information. So the first 3 weeks of August, we could expect to see a massive contraction in the markets purely based on the fear of this potential new virus. So it might be good if you have stocks that you've got your eye on that you want to invest around late July, especially after the banking crisis has happened. There's less confidence in the market. If we see any news related to a virus around first 3 weeks of August, that could be a good time to buy some stocks or assets on the cheap. So this is based on the transit of Jupiter in Ashlesha and Jyeshta nakshatras. This is a Vedic astrology technique, a really interesting piece of research because you wouldn't associate Jupiter with bringing pandemics. But I've done the backtesting research, and there's some strong correlation between Jupiter entering Ashlesha and Jyeshta nakshatras and these health scares arriving. So I think we could see early news of this by first week of August. Market panic sets in by the second or third week of August 2026. So don't worry too much about that. I don't think it's COVID, but might be a good time to take advantage of fear in the markets. Prediction 9, I think Tesla is going to be a particularly good stock in 2026. Now, I know Tesla is a bit of a, it's just, everyone likes Tesla. It's a bit of a meme. It's just a very well-known stock. But I think 2026 is going to have some good performance for Tesla, especially around the Saturn-Neptune conjunction and Aquarius eclipse of February. This is when I think we're going to see the rollout of the Optimus robots. Now, these are Optimus robots. There is a little bit of hype related to this. There is a little bit of like, oh, well, it's just overly hyped up new technology. But I think we're going to see the rollout of these Tesla Optimus robots begin around February. And I think we're going to see a price surge for Tesla stock, especially around the second half of 2026. If you use a certain astrological chart for the first trade of Tesla, we'll see Jupiter enters the first house of that chart by July 2026. And this is a generally auspicious and strong transit for Tesla stock. So I think we're going to see a lot of revenue increase and a lot of stock price growth from Tesla, specifically with the Optimus robots, which will have far-reaching consequences for the economy in the future. And prediction 10, real estate won't crash. In fact, it will just continue to increase. House values are going to continue to increase. I'm primarily predicting this for the Western economy, UK, Canada, US, Europe to some extent. Western economy housing market will continue to increase in value. Main astrological reason for this is that tropically, Jupiter remains in the sign of Cancer. This is a planet of expansion in a sign associated with homes, with rentals, with private spaces, with the whole real estate sector as a whole. Also, we have Jupiter coming into Cancer in the sidereal Vedic system, depending on what perspective you want to use. So it's a double confluence for this sense of expansion in the housing market. We've already seen things like Trump trying to get these 50-year mortgages off the ground. We also have seen that he doesn't want to build too many houses because homeowners will lose their wealth. So I think the housing bubble actually is going to increase and increase and increase in 2026, which is great if you're a homeowner, not so great if you're not a homeowner. But I think this is going to increase, and then 2027 presents a high risk period for housing. I think 2027, we could see a housing bubble burst across the Western world. But for 2026, it's just going to continue into an unsustainable bubble. And when the time 2027 comes around, it'll be so unsustainable that that bubble will fall and burst. So if you're a homeowner, good for 2026. Don't sell early 2026. Wait till the effects of late 2026. You might find that your properties are worth even more. Even though for those who don't own their homes, it's already kind of insane and crazy. So if you don't own a home, or if you're thinking of maybe putting a deposit down, I'd wait until 2027, 2028, because I think there's a real risk of a housing crash around there, in my very humble opinion, just from what I've researched from the Financial Astrology. Remember, guys, I want you to confluence my predictions here and my research with other people, other news that you get, other social media people. You need to confluence these research bits with your other news sources. If I'm saying that real estate is going to increase, check what the real estate experts are saying. Does it align? If I'm saying that there's a tech bubble burst happening in February, does it align with what the market is saying? But it's going to be really fun to see if this plays out over 2026. So kind of testing my financial astrology research skills, putting myself out there, open to these failing, but I'm fairly confident that we may see a couple of these play out. And I'll be back here in the end of 2026 to review how that goes, and then we'll do a yearly predictions for 2027. If you found this video interesting, obviously please like and subscribe and all the rest of it. I'm active here on YouTube, but I'm primarily active on Substack. Substack is where I'm putting out 1 to 2 articles a week. We go into the astrology of cryptos, of currencies, of markets, using very specific Western and Vedic techniques. We've got a good community building up here. There's lots of quick fire charts on the group chat for stocks, for assets, for commodities, quick predictions, quick analyses. We've got a load of requests coming through for analyses on different assets. You can put in your requests. There's a lot of good stuff happening on the Substack. That is just Rowan's Financial Astrology on Substack. And of course, also here on YouTube, where I'll be putting out update videos every now and again. Make sure to like and subscribe, get on the Substack. And if you're interested in more, check out this Astrology of Silver in 2026 video featuring the excellent Sulabh Jain of Chariot Palmistry. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Have a great new year. And end the video. Bye.